from the perspective of non-duality, awakening, full consciousness, healing of emotions, psychology, mentality is a necessary part. It is a necessary part because there are certain blocks that need to be opened for consciousness to be liberated. So on the way to full consciousness, there are certain particular locks individually that need to be inquired, found, and healed and unlocked. Why I mention specific ones is because not all of them are blocking access to full consciousness. So not all, mental, psychological, or traumatic issues are blocking the access to full consciousness. There are specific ones. And so that is, we can say, a highway to full consciousness. To go on a road and to identify, okay, this is a major obstacle, let's work on that. And that's the major obstacle, and let's work on that too. On the highway, you not necessarily pay attention to every single thing on the road. Not necessarily you stop at every stop when you are on a highway. So therefore, opening to full consciousness, it doesn't mean that everything will be resolved. And I've been saying this for a long time already. And I'm, repeating again so that everyone knows that. Not necessarily everything is resolved to open up to full consciousness. When you open up to full consciousness, you are open. And in that openness, things come. The past, things return. But now you have this openness. Supportive openness, supportive space, and the mind, the identity, is no longer holding one hostage, so to speak. The identity, the I, is not holding you hostage anymore. So it's easier. It's definitely easier to continue healing. Now, when it comes to healing, the major issues are traumas. Traumas, you need to understand that they create a certain nervous system blind spot. So traumas are literally nervous system physiological blockages. And when there is a certain traumatic experience, a person cannot process what's going on. So therefore it is blocked in their nervous system. This experience cannot be processed, so it gets blocked. And yes, so what happens then is that since it cannot be processed, it is blocked, and then the neurons rewire, kind of they bypass that blockage because it couldn't be dealt with. So the neurons start rewiring and bypassing it. Like on the road, there is a major blockage. and then the road is closed, so you have to find another way around, basically. So that's how the neuron pathways work. But what happens is that you know, in the road blockage or in the neuron pathway blockage, it stays. It stays, and things got rewired or rerouted, but that blockage is still there. It stays in the nervous system. So nervous system damage and trauma damage is one of the most challenging things, really. It's like the bottom of the bottom. It's the most challenging stuff. What happens then is, since a certain part of neuron pathways is blocked, it got rewired into an alternative route. But since it's not the healthiest way, it starts affecting the psychology and subconsciousness of a person. It starts to kind of shift into some kind of alternative options. And that's where many mechanisms are born, such as escapism, avoidance, denial, aggression, which is protection, and so on, you know, of not wanting to go back to that blockage point. So subconsciousness and psychology starts to become conditioned. And then, of course, it starts to affect the mind, the thinking mind, and emotional state. So we have now reviewed how the issues are functioning, you know, from the trauma, neurological damage, nervous system damage, and then into psychology and subconsciousness. And then it starts molding into mental and emotional issues. So when it comes to trauma healing, it is not a quick thing. It's not a quick thing. It takes time. And what I've seen with many people is that we need to clear layers. We need to clear associated emotions, associated beliefs, to have a deeper access. So we do clearing on one layer, on the surface, on the mid layer, and then we get the access to that actual trauma, to that actual deepest thing. It is possible to heal traumas, and actually in the level of consciousness presence, usually that's where we encounter some key challenges. And as you know, there are many people who moved into non-duality and above, so it means it's doable, it's possible to work through some of those key major life challenges. And thus, in non-duality, one feels a certain liberation, and then it continues to increase the sense of freedom and the strength of awareness and the openness, because the key obstacles are worked through. So when it comes to healing from a non-dual perspective, the key obstacles need to be cleared because they are blocking access to consciousness. Once you get access to full consciousness, the healing continues, and you continue working through other non-key challenges of life and other non-key issues, psychological issues, emotional and traumatic issues. So the healing continues. And essentially, healing is very necessary. if a person is in full consciousness, it doesn't mean that they have completely healed everything. It doesn't mean that they're very integrated, that they are untriggerable, and that they basically became a saint, blissed out somewhere under the tree. That's not the case. Yeah, let's discuss how things really are. Let's not fantasize about things, because it's not helpful to you. Yeah, if we keep those illusions and ideas and fantasies, you're gonna realize that you're chasing a dream, a fantasy. You want to escape reality. You want to escape that which is here now. And therefore, that is not healthy. It's making you less present, and it just postpones things further. And sometimes it even accumulates more. So being real and honest, healing is a big part of the journey. On a highway to full consciousness, healing is needed of the key things, not all of them, key things. But then, when you experience the healing of the key blockages and key issues, you already have a certain experience and knowledge how to do healing. So you see, my role is not to be a doctor or a healer. My role is to, first of all, help you to come to full consciousness and to help you to learn how to heal yourself. Yes, I want all of you to learn to take care of yourself. Yeah, it makes my life easier. So essentially, by experiencing the healing of the key issues that you can't deal with yourself, but you got the support, then you know how to do the healing. And therefore, other non-key things, I trust that you will manage yourself. And you're going to continue healing yourself. And we do have many techniques that we teach in terms of emotional inquiry, emotional healing. There are plenty of meditations that are available on New Humanity Life. We have a section of practices, emotional healing practices, and presence practice is for those a bit more advanced, as a way of healing, continuing to heal. So there are actually a lot of videos and resources that we provide of how to do healing. And of course, it is a practice, and many things you can do yourself to heal, but certain things and certain times you need some help. Because some things you just kind of, they're maybe too deep or too big that you need additional support to work on them. So in terms of, awakening to higher consciousness, my perspective is that the key things need to be worked through, healed, but the rest you can take care yourself, because that is your work to do. And you need to learn the techniques, how it's done, and then it's quite the same all the time, really, because there is another kind of emotion, and now you know how to take care of it. There is another kind of challenging energy, and you can take care of it. So my role is to help you to increase your capacity of openness, space, supportive strength, and then you need to do your own polishment throughout those cycles. So to summarize, that healing First of all, it has to do with traumas, which are the deepest, and some key psychological blockages. Many of them come from childhood, teenagehood, even adulthood, depending how young or old one is. So, there is always a time, a situation in the past where something started, and something is related to what caused that psychological blockage or traumatic experience. And then over time, it becomes a subconscious accumulation, and it affects psychology. And then it manifests into the way of perceiving things, into a way of seeing, yourself or others or the world, and the way of feeling about yourself, others, or the world. And that's how things crudify over a period of time. One more important thing to mention is that, when it comes to psychological and traumatic experiences, I really encourage everyone to develop understanding. And I would really encourage everyone to learn about traumas, how they function, their mechanisms. There are a lot of resources online available about trauma healing, and if you are interested more, you could send us an email and we can give you more specific resources. So essentially, psychological and traumatic issues, you really need to develop understanding, because it's going to help you. It's going to really help you to learn about this. I know it's not the most interesting topic, because we all want bliss and happiness and freedom, and we want to enjoy life, and why should I learn about traumas and and all those things? I want to escape them. I don't want to have them. I want to be spiritual. I don't want anything to do with that. And that's how many people are thinking. And however, if you do want to be really free, my suggestion is to learn about traumas and their mechanisms, because it's gonna make you a lot stronger. It's gonna liberate you to have awareness of those mechanisms, and the brighter the consciousness, guess what it does? It shines brighter. It shines brighter into every corner of your being. So, I have investigated every corner of my being, every corner. I literally turned every pebble upside down, and anything really that would come up, not only in myself, but in other people and in the collective humanity's consciousness. I've seen so many things that many people wouldn't realize, and couldn't handle these things, but my capacity has increased. The light, was able to shine deeper and deeper, and to pierce through, to see through, and to see those mechanisms, to see the functions of the most deepest and darkest places of the human psyche. If you want to be really strong in consciousness, you have to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper But not to worry, you know, the healer should not get sick. So you should not drown, you know, in more problems. That's not the point. So my intention was never, you know, to kind of you know, get into more trouble, so to speak. My intention was to see more clearly how things function so that I can help others and be free myself. Um, essentially, um, when it comes to psychological blockages and traumatic blockages, it's very important to develop understanding, to learn, and to, you know, inquire, investigate, and to prepare, you know, whether for yourself or for helping others. And this also, you know, the knowledge of traumas and some experience, you know, of your own healing and helping others, it brings more compassion to you, and it brings more humility and strength to help someone who is re-experiencing something traumatic. And when people are re-experiencing something traumatic, they get, you know, there is a trigger, and they, through that blind spot, you know, they may say bad things, they may act out, you know. In the worst cases, it can become quite, you know, angry and rage and even, you know, abusive in some ways. But you know, your kind of ability to realize that this person is you know, is acting through the blockage, so you don't take it personally. You know, you don't take it personally. You develop ability to see what's really going on here. You develop ability to have compassion for what's going on here. And of course, you know, you might get a bit abused because you are helping someone, but you're helping someone with such a big challenge that sometimes, you know, you may take a lot of fire, and you might be a bit beaten up, you know, by trying to help someone. But you don't take it personally, because you know that, you know what they're experiencing. You know that you're doing your best, and ideally, the more you learn, the more you know how these mechanisms function, the better you will be at helping someone. So even people at high levels of consciousness, you know, do have blind spots if they have some past traumas. They can still act out on something conditionally if they haven't resolved something of the cycles of the past. And that's why, you know, it is challenging to be self-realized, and especially to live, so to speak, a normal life in the, especially in the, you know, in the Western world, where things are not focused spiritually, where you know, it's a non-cultural thing. Like in India, it's a cultural thing to you know, to it's a cultural understanding of people who are, you know, in service of consciousness, divine, to have a certain maybe respect and you know, and understanding and support those people. But in the West, nobody cares. Nobody cares really, and therefore, you know, it's a challenge to be awakened and to live, so to speak, a normal life, you know. Um, so therefore you face all sorts of conditional situations um, that life normally brings. You know, you might need to continue going to work, to, you know, continue with relationships, to continue, you know, just living a normal life, so to speak, even after your awakening. So it doesn't mean that you know, this fantasy that you will be a guru and now everybody has come to you and, you know, treat you as a celebrity and you know, and so on. And that kind of life is easier, actually. You know, it's culturally supported in some places, and you know, and it's easier, actually, because it's more difficult to live, you know, to live a you know, a usual Western life where nothing is so to speak supporting you know, your life even after awakening. So that's a big illusion that people come up, you know, and face, that, you know, even if you get enlightened and fully realized, you know, you still gotta do what you do. You know, you still gotta continue, you know, having some income and you know, doing your dishes, cleaning your house, and taking care of friends and family, and, you know, being in a relationship, and so on. Um, that's the beautiful challenge that we are facing in the West. So developing understanding of necessity of healing, learning about how these mechanisms work, is essential part. It's a, we can say it's a subject that you don't want to study, but it's very healthy for you to study it. Like in a school, you know, you don't like mathematics, but you still gotta learn those numbers, how they work. You know, you just hate them, but you still have to learn them. So it's a bit similar, that in, you know, you do need to learn how to deal with challenges, because it's not all roses, and it's never been only roses. And if you are expecting only roses, unfortunately, your illusion will be faced by reality of challenges. So what does make life easier is learning how to deal with challenges and how they work. So that does make life easier. And then throughout time and continuous, you know, work, self-work, you know, inner work, you polish up yourself. You polish up, and you have a certain transcendence. When the energy gets polished on both ends to a certain degree, there is a certain release and liberation. So this energy becomes a transcendent energy. So otherwise, in other words, you are no longer triggered by it, and you can no longer be non-reactive to that particular type of, you know, provocation or trigger, and so on. So yeah, so that's how we polish those cycles, and therefore this transcendence comes over time. And many times people, you know, watch videos and they, you know, kind of idealize and fantasize that all those teachers, you know, and enlightened beings, they're like saints and angels and so on, because they appear on YouTube all the time, you know, to be so, you know, blissed and in total perfection. But you don't know their personal life. You know, you don't know all the things that go on, you know. You don't know all the challenges that they face. because it's not on YouTube, you know. And you have to realize that every being has to learn how to deal with challenges, has to learn about all these healing things, and has to work on it. So there are some teachers who are, you know, maybe immature and full of denial and or full of, you know, only perfectionism, and they completely ignore these topics, and try to avoid them, you know, to maybe uphold a certain image or something like that. And sooner or later these issues come up, and yeah, so it's complicated, and the best thing is to acknowledge the complication of human interactions, of human psychology, and particularly to acknowledge the complications of psychological blockages and traumas, because they heal not so quick. They take time to heal. You gotta see through them. You gotta work through them. You gotta re-experience this painful healing, and you gotta heal those old wounds. And it takes time. It's not a quick thing, especially with traumas, because your neurons are literally damaged in some way. So it's tough. It is. It takes time. So my advice is to educate yourself, learn. It's not a pleasant topic, but it's a very healthy and necessary one. And it is good to have as much support as possible. And there is all sorts of support available, you know, in a, you know, at various levels. There's a lot of information about trauma healing online available. There are various courses and seminars, psychological, you know, things are also, there are many books to read, and there are many groups to join, and it's pretty normal things that people face normally. You know, people jump into spirituality and think that it's all going to be rosy and easy, but then they realize that, you know, they have a lot of issues and they need to work through them. And some people really ignore their issues, their own issues. And sometimes they need to kind of reground themselves and to understand that, you know, trauma is a trauma. Psychological issue is a psychological issue. And if one spiritualizes it all, you know, maybe it makes it easier in one's head, but the healing process is still the same. Although it's supportive to be charged, you know, with the higher energy, the life force energy. And of course, it's very helpful to, you know, receive support from somebody who has done this work, who can help with this in an energetic way. So that's really, really helpful. So my advice is to seek for help, receive help, learn, educate yourself. And it's good to learn and educate yourself when things are good, when the days are good. Because when you hit a challenge, you should be ready for it. You know, if suddenly it hits you out of nowhere and you haven't learned anything how to face the challenge, well, you're gonna be fully in that challenge. You know, you're gonna go through it in the most complicated way. So better prepare for the rainy day, so to speak. Yeah. So in a summary, issues are issues. Even if we, you know, consider ourselves to be spiritual, a trauma is still a trauma. You know, psychological stuff is still psychological stuff, even if you put, you know, the words that, you know, I am this and that, and you know, if you use your spiritual dictionary, you're not going to fool anybody, you know. If you have issues, it's clear. Even if you speak with spiritual dictionary, it's still clear that there is, you know, a certain problem here. So some people try to sugarcoat it and to spiritualize it and to, you know, act it, you know, spiritually, but the problem is still a problem and it needs to be worked and healed. And yes, and just, you know, I've seen a lot of people avoiding stuff, and that's why I need to say that it's good to do healing, and it's good to get help, and it's good to learn how to heal and how these mechanisms work, because you are learning something important for your life, and you are, you know, developing yourself, you're learning the complexities of psychology. And if you want to be good at helping others, well, you got to learn it. And, you know, for me, it kind of was developing naturally, but kind of a part of my mind in the past was surprised, like, why do I need to learn this stuff? You know, like, it's, you know, why do I need to learn about all these psychological problems? You know, part of my kind of reflection used to be. But then I realized, you know, I got to learn how to help people with addictions, with traumas, with psychological issues, with all sorts of crazy stuff. And I got to learn it because I'm going to have to help people. And this was kind of revealed over time as something very important. And especially when it comes to higher LOCs like presence, non-duality, and above, you gotta really know, like, what is really blocking the consciousness. You kind of have that insight to see, oh, that's the thing. And I can identify those things like just in 3 sentences, you know, with 3 questions, maybe sometimes 5 questions, you know. So you know, I don't listen to people's stories. I just ask this, and oh, clear. This is the issue we need to work on. So you know, in higher LOCs, you gotta see those deepest hooks, deepest blockages, and help people out with that. And the other topic of today is psychedelics and healing. So by psychedelics, I mean, you know, various chemical psychedelics, but more importantly, I would like to address the topic of more natural psychedelics, such as mushrooms and you know, shamanic medicine, and you know, Native American medicine, and there's also African medicine, and various plants, and even, you know, some frog like you know, things, and iboga, and many other things that produce various effects. And I would distinguish into 2 categories. One is what is called a psychedelic medicine. It's a medicine. And the other part, which is chemical, you know, like LSD and all other things like heroin and so on. So the chemical stuff is not so healing stuff. It's not healing stuff. It you know, some of it, like LSD, it can create a certain awakening of altered perceptions beyond the 3D mind. So there are many stories of people awakening via LSD particularly, and having some kind of, out of ordinary experience and a certain awakening of a different version of reality. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's good. It's a bit dangerous though, because if you overdose it, you're gonna have a pretty rough trip, so it has a lot to do with how much, and you've got to be very careful about that. But sometimes it helps people to awaken and have a certain different view of reality. And that's one of the reasons why, the governments and the law systems have made them illegal, because it doesn't help people to be compliant, to be, programmed sheep, compliant citizens. If people realize that reality is not what the government says, then the government has a bit of a trouble controlling those people. So from a perspective of experiencing reality in different ways, it is a positive thing. From the perspective of fooling around and not knowing what you're doing with those things, that's a dangerous thing. So if you use, some things are legal, by the way, like marijuana is already legal in many countries and so on, and certain other less known shamanic and African and even Egyptian, like lotus, is also quite psychedelic. And for example, Egyptian lotus is known as the flower of gods. And it's been used in Egyptian rituals, and there are carvings or hieroglyphs. So it's called the blue lotus. So there are many plants, and how can you say that this plant is illegal? Nature gave it to you, so how can it be illegal from a perspective of nature? It is only legal to not know what you're doing and to cause trouble to someone. That is illegal, really. If you're damaging yourself and if you're causing somebody trouble, from my perspective, that is illegal, so to speak. But if you know what you're doing, if you use it for a right purpose to assist in your awakening and healing, from my perspective, and I caution that my perspective does not comply with legal system fully, but the legal system is invented, and it has a long way to go to be in alignment with the universe. So from my perspective, if one knows what they're doing, if one is supported, helped, assisted for a good reason and good purpose, then all of these things are good. But if things become addictive, that's not good. If it creates something to you which damages you, like sometimes LSD overdose can damage your brain, and ayahuasca can screw you up as well if you do too much. And with any other things, like if you overdose it, you're gonna get some trouble and you might damage yourself. And I seen many people who, not so many, but some people who have had issues and they have come to me for help. And I have helped them to stabilize and to heal and to recover and so on. So I've seen like the craziest stuff you could ever imagine. I've seen it, and probably helped someone with it. At New Humanity Life, I will make a disclaimer that we do not promote any of these things, and we are not working with them either. So it's not something that we do, but personally, I have experience at helping people with those things because I can help them energetically with their psychology, consciousness, and so on. Although this is not my key interest to help people with addictions and with severe, psychological issues. My key interest is to help people to awaken consciousness in a most balanced way, and that they can learn to take care of themselves. This is my key focus, so to speak. So when it comes to natural plants, it is the nature gave it. You just need to learn how to use it. When it comes to chemical things, that's where more danger is, because they're not so natural, and even more caution is needed. And some things are specifically made to be addictive, like heroin, for example, or cocaine. One should totally avoid these things because they're addictive, and they actually kind of blank you out. I've seen people with effects of those drugs, and like, wow, they're like nearly dead, from a perspective of consciousness. They just blanked out. Their emotions got like wiped out, and they got thrown into the level of like consciousness of 20 or 30, like right to the bottom. So cocaine and heroin is very bad. I don't know anything good about it. And it's addictive, and it just really lowers one's consciousness in a very unhealthy way. So some of those chemicals are really dangerous and should be avoided. LSD is a bit more interesting if used very wisely. Then it can be an interesting thing to experience some alterations. Again, it's not going to make anybody enlightened. I don't know anyone who actually became enlightened. I know many people who had all sorts of crazy experiences and sometimes high level experiences, but as soon as the chemical ended, their consciousness didn't go much up. And the best example when it comes to LSD is Ramdas, a known guru teacher, and he has been a Harvard professor of, I think, psychology, if I'm correct. And he then discovered LSD, and it really fascinated him. He quit Harvard University, or maybe he was kicked out, I don't know, for some reason. And then he, experimented with it. And then he realized that it doesn't make you enlightened. And then he went to India, met a guru, and got his realization. And then he was kind of in the 60s and 70s and 80s sharing his experience of drugs and what enlightenment is in comparison to drugs. So Ramdas his story is quite fascinating and interesting, and he's a beautiful soul. I still say he is a beautiful soul, because he is a beautiful soul, although he left his body just quite recently, actually, just very recently, a couple of years ago. So it's an interesting story that he brought in, for sure. And when it comes to shamanic medicine, African medicine, or any plant medicine, let's just call it either plant or some certain animal medicine, like frog or snake or something, that they do have some kind of poison, but it's done in a way that it doesn't poison you, but it creates a healing effect if you know what you're doing. So let's call it the nature medicine, so to speak, plant or animal, which can provide a lot of healing and emotional healing. It can help a lot. It can help with the, some energetic blockages. It can help with certain, even psychological blockages. There are different types of plants and animal medicines. And I have some friends who are shamans, and I've seen, you know, what they do, what effects they have, and so on. So it can be supportive and helpful if, again, one is doing it with support, assistance, and one has a big feeling that they need it, that it would help them, and particularly doing it kind of in a supported and responsible way. So in this case, it can help to heal many things. It can help to discover many things inside and heal many things inside. Many of these things, you know, plant medicine, they have their own spirit. So a mushroom has its spirit, you know, ayahuasca has its spirit. So that spirit has a certain intelligence, and it can assist in a certain healing way, again, if it's not abused and done, you know, properly. But a person needs to feel a certain calling, a certain need for that. And in some countries, it is illegal. In some countries, it is legal. So you have to check that out too. You know, I've seen some people who, again, they did not become enlightened with these medicines. Another, you know, thing, but you know, they can go up to like inner love, unity, consciousness with these things. I've met so many shamans who kind of got stuck in unity, oneness, consciousness, and they didn't go to presence because it's so different. And so again, I would say that there might be some high level realized people who came through this way, but it's very, very, very few, because it's not designed for consciousness and self-realization. It's designed for more healing and experiences of altered universal dimensions and spaces and energies and places. So my take on psychedelics is that there is chemical stuff which is quite dangerous, and only certain things can be useful for a certain purpose, but natural stuff is better with help and inner kind of calling. So you should never get tricked into it. You should never kind of meet some friends, oh, let's do ayahuasca, it's gonna be fun. And then you go there and you get knocked out, you know, and have a bad trip because you just kind of was curious and you got dragged into it, and that's not a good way. But if you feel you've done your research, you met the shaman, or a healer, and you really have talked through it, considered everything, and feel that it would be very beneficial for you, and if it's legal in your country, then it's okay to do it for mainly for healing purposes, or certain spiritual awakenings of what it has to do with energetics mainly. But when it comes to full consciousness, kind of forget about it. They're not going to really help you to get to full consciousness. And I would only recommend to use any of those things if you know what you're doing, and if you want to support yourself to heal or do something specific that you know what you are doing with them. So that is my perspective when it comes to this subject. You know, people tend to wish for all the good things, and try to avoid all the bad things, but to be truly free and truly present and grounded and mature is to know how to heal yourself and to work on it, to do your best, because that assures your well-being. Right, so we have a bit of time for questions, and I can see one question already. Yeah, so that's a typical case, you know. Vladimir said he had like some mushroom ceremony some years ago, and he was in bliss for 7 hours, and then he wanted to get back to it since ever. So that's one part. You see, the thing is that's what happens sometimes, that via medicine or drugs, people do experience something much higher, and then there is a certain crash down for some people, and then it also affects psychology of wanting to get back to it and not being able to get back to it. And that's what Ramdas was saying, you know, he had these amazing LSD experiences, but he couldn't ever sustain them. And he got really frustrated and he got really desperate. And he tried to do everything to get back to it. And you know, it's already a certain victimizing psychology. Yeah, you get what I mean? It's a certain victimizing psychology. You got something super, you know, amazing for a few hours or a couple of days, and then it's gone. And then you want to get back to it, but you can't. So you fall as a victim in a way to something this super amazing that happened to you. And many people spend years trying to get back to it, and they get so frustrated, so disappointed and desperate that they become very miserable. So perhaps if one has not experienced that experience, maybe they would be happier beings overall. And maybe they could take a more balanced approach to open up their consciousness. Yeah, so I'm just throwing in ideas. So sometimes too high experiences can become a big misery for many years. Yeah, and some teachers or shamans are irresponsible, and yeah, they throw people into these problems. And my view is to take a more holistic approach, more responsible approach, to help a person to open up their consciousness, what they can handle, and to clarify on the way that you know, your normal experience is the work that you have done, and we can discover what is natural to you and how to enhance it, what is natural to you, and how not to chase something which is not sustainable and not natural to you. Yeah, because you don't want to fall into misery. And that's a common thing. You don't want to become a victim of something. And the second part of the question is that bliss state possible to be held in normal waking consciousness? It is possible. However, there is a lot of work to be done, a lot, to be in a blissful state in a waking consciousness. So, my normal experience is very blissful. I even forgot about it, that it's here, because it became so normal to me. But it has been a lot of energy work, a lot. And many years, many years of non-stop energy purifications and work. So it is possible, but it's a rare thing which requires a lot of work. Pepijin?
Hi, Mindo. I was wondering about sometimes, a lot of time, I don't know what my needs are, what I need in the moment, and I cannot feel my borders. I cannot feel them, and I cannot tell other people what my borders are. And do you think that is trauma related?
So you're saying that sometimes you don't know what your needs are and you don't have kind of boundaries.
Yeah.
How does it make you feel? What is the feeling usually present?
Not connected.
Not connected.
To the body or to love.
Not connected to what? To the body or to love?
Yeah, not connected to source and not connected to my physical body.
But what are you connected with? What do you feel then? What is there?
An experience in the body.
There is experience in the body.
Yeah.
So you're in the body. And how do you feel in the body?
Light. Not so grounded.
Not so grounded. And kind of a bit floaty somewhere, no?
Yeah.
So you feel kind of a bit ungrounded and floaty, and that also produces the effect of not feeling so much connected and not so present. Yeah. So this is how you inquire, how you actually feel, what actually happens. And then you can do the meditation that we did today with the tree, with sitting and feeling that part of your energy is not grounded, it's floaty, but there is a tree behind you, there is a space around the floaty energy. And then give it some time and see what comes up. Not necessarily a trauma. It can be some chakra disbalance. It can be many things, really. It's not necessarily a trauma. So today I wanted you to experience like how to inquire, how to find what you actually are experiencing. And to correct you, you said, I don't feel love. You don't have to feel love all the time, first of all. So that's an illusion already, that I have to feel love all the time. No, you don't have to. You have to be present with what is here all the time. Yeah, you gotta be present here. You're gonna notice. You should develop awareness. What you feel now, what is present now. Don't develop awareness of what is not present here now. What's the point? You're wasting your time by focusing on what's not here. So you can only develop awareness of what is here. So you can flip the coin upside down and say, there is no love, but then say, what is here? Yeah, so what is here? So don't focus on what is not here, because you have no power in that focus. You have no power in that focus. Oh, there is no love here. You have no power there in this way. But you have power by finding, so what is here? And can I become more present? Can I feel more space? That's where the power returns back to you. And that's how you deepen. And I specifically didn't go further to, find something more, because I want you to do it yourself. I want you to learn this technique, how to do it yourself.
Okay.
Yes. So the completion of this discussion is for you to learn to do it yourself. Yes. Good. Right. We have another question. What's the major differences you see in standard psychotherapy and non-dual healing? Very good question. Standard psychotherapy is too much analytical, and the healing happens in a supportive space, and particularly with the help of someone who can hold the space for another person's healing. So in essence, it has to do with energy. It has to do with energy. So only asking questions and just analyzing emotions doesn't fully resolve them. And I met many people who spent like 5-10 years with psychotherapists, and we managed to heal that in a couple of weeks or months. Sometimes psychotherapy is needed, and in some extreme cases, opening a person energetically can be also not supportive, especially if it has to do with some more kind of clinical cases. So sometimes opening a person to energy and creating more openness may not be helpful, because a person needs to kind of ground more. So that's why we are not really focusing on clinical healing and on severe cases, because some people do need some professional, psychological help. And most likely these people would not be interested in spirituality and opening their consciousness further, because they have so many issues to deal with at hand. So in the non-dual healing, we focus more on helping person to overcome problems in evaluation, that they're on the spiritual path, that they can handle it, and it will help them further to progress. Everybody can be healed, but it's a question of time and the right support. Yeah, so essentially, when it comes to that's where LOCs also come in, because if a person is, let's say, really in severe addictions and distortions, and their LOCs maybe at the level of 50, and you know, they're delusional and so on, you know, they need professional help. They need, you know, psychiatry, they need some medication, they need, you know, a very long-term healing to stabilize into a normal, so to speak, stable consciousness. And there is nothing to talk about spiritual awakening and going further than that until they're you know, truly stabilized in a normal functional state. So that's why, you know, I'm not a psychotherapist and I'm not a healer, so to speak, and it's not my main thing, you know, to work on traumas and other things for those who need, you know, who are, you know, who are extremely disbalanced and so on. And that's why, you know, if somebody has alcoholism issues, you know, there is AA or AAA, I forgot how many A's there are. If someone has other addictions, there are other programs. If somebody does need, you know, a psychotherapy, one should go for it, because our focus here is awakening and you know, progressing in one's consciousness and spirituality, rather than, you know, resolving some clinical cases. So for that, there are specific, you know, institutions and groups and support systems that are good for that. And we are focused on, you know, consciousness awakening, spiritual growth. And it does involve, you know, as I said before, some healing, some key healing, and learning how to heal. So although I can do a lot of things, but I prefer to help people who are on the path of you know, responsible awakening. And I am also cautious and careful not to, you know, take on somebody who is psychologically unstable and who can, you know, do something crazy. So you know, I can be as careful as I can, because I have seen many things happening. So that's why support is a big thing, and to get the right support is also very important. And to realize that, you know, spirituality is for those who are ready for it, and especially higher levels of consciousness is for those who are psychologically stable and who can you know, take care of many things, and who are willing to learn, and who can handle things, and who want to have that kind of support. Those are welcomed. So it's a good question, and it requires a lot of considerations in it, you know. So I won't say that, oh, we can heal all addictions and, you know, mental severe distortions, because sometimes they're completely physiological. You know, the brain, there are brain damages even, you know. We are not dealing with that here. You know, we're helping people healthily to progress forward. But all of you, of course, are healthy people, and you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be interested in this otherwise. So it's all fine, really.
I would like to share that my lovely nervous system was very, very shaky this winter. And the past few months, maybe 6 weeks or so, maybe less, I decided to change some therapies that I was just to actually do new healing for myself that I'd never ever done before. And being nearly 3 decades in personal development and this path. And one of them was to hire, I'm with a psychotherapist. And my main was that this psychotherapist had EMDR, which is the brain spotting. which is a technique that's very effective for some, but it is very effective for me to help remove this damage to the brain from traumas that happen. I personally am finding, you know, initially when I was doing it, because it is so simple, he's just like has a pen in front of him, your eyes have to follow it. So, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this? He said, yes, you're fine, you're fine. I mean, it's very, very effective and very sweet, because literally it goes back to that moment where your trauma is, and helps you bring another live memory from your life there.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm getting great freedom from it. Great freedom. You know, exactly what you're saying. It brings in more light, and yeah, stabilizing me a lot. I'm just taking a bit of a break now, because I've done 3, and then I'll do more in June, so I'll be able to report more. But it's a very effective trauma release for me. And I'm currently microdosing on psilocybin.
Oh, okay.
On the, yeah, which was a new thing again for me. A lot of newness happening. And that's more subtle because it's only microdosing. And but yeah, I feel lighter. I feel I feel nicely, and maybe LOC 500s, you know, just living with the love for myself primarily, and for others.
Yeah, maybe
and,
it's a self-loving support that is helpful now.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And but I definitely have to watch for my addictive click, because yes, the other night I was at a party and I had some party psilocybin, and it was very fun. I was down in a valley and I was like, oh my god, I want to do that again. I want, you know, that as you're talking about this loop, to do it again, even though it was literally just a bit of giddiness, like being tipsy on wine or something. But it was fun, and yeah, that's it. And I'm doing another therapy, if I could offer it. I don't think it's trauma releasing, but long-term effects of it is helps with the brain, with dementia and things that the brain, you know, when the brain starts slowing down in age. And it's called cryotherapy, and you stand in minus 85 degrees for 6 minutes.
All right, all right.
You'd love that. You would love that, Mr. Cole. You don't like the heat. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. I can't say it affects the traumas, but I really do feel superhuman after it, I have to say.
Yes,
It gives
yes.
a very big boost to the body.
Yeah, and there are so many techniques and ways and support, you know, groups and therapies that can really help with a lot of things, and that's why healing is such a big topic, and it just continues and continues and continues. And even, you know, wherever one is, at whichever LOC, you know, cycles come back, you know, and you go, you know, you go through the cycles, and sometimes you revisit, you know, this place and that place, and like you said, you're revisiting the inner love, you know, place, and it's very lovely to revisit it. It's very lovely to love yourself in whatever way love manifests, you know, now, and supports you now. And you know, you know, for many people, you know, to go back into and do more healing, you know, it sometimes it requires some courage, but then you find out that, wow, this has been an amazing thing to do, and because you are approaching it from a different perspective, you know, you have much deeper access, so it may be very effective right now, and it's amazing. So when it comes to healing, you know, it's a continuous research. It's a continuous development of techniques and modalities and practices. You know, we like to research the healing devices, you know, we have quite many at the center, I'm always curious to research new healing technologies and to see how they work, because let's face it, that there is a lot of healing to do for humanity. Humanity overall has not even started to heal overall. You know, overall, as a whole humanity, it's still fully manipulated by fear, and it just continues to accumulate. And those who are awakening, they are starting to learn how to heal. And being a human in a way on this earth will require a constant healing in a way, because you know, you always face, you know, energetic distortions, you know, food poisoning, other people, you know, even sometimes people seem to be very spiritual, but they have a lot of issues, psychological issues, and so on. So you may meet some people who will trigger you highly and you know, open up a lot of past wounds. And it's just a total necessity to learn how to heal, to go through the healing, and to continue strengthening yourself. And on the other hand, there's another question from Santi. In the Be Here Now Ramdas book, he talked about his Guru Maharashi, where he gave him some LSD, and Maharashi kind of, I know that story, he rolled his eyes for a bit, and then it seemingly didn't affect him very much. Yeah, that is an indication of a very deep state that he was in, and some yogis, you know, can do some amazing stuff. You know, they could take a whole bucket of LSD and nothing would happen to them, because they have, you know, done certain practices, certain things to have a certain, you know, stability. So many yogis can do pretty amazing things, and they have dedicated maybe their whole life to do those amazing things. So in this story, well, Maharashi he is very highly awakened and highly integrated guru and teacher, and yeah, pretty extraordinary being, and thus you know, it's a interesting example. But let's say that there is always some interesting cases that appear everywhere, but you know, it doesn't have to do with awakening in a standard way. You know, I'm still very fascinated how people are fascinated at these extraordinary stories, and they look up to them while ignoring that which is doable. You know, that which is doable and that which gives you more ability, capacity, and power. And by focusing on these extraordinary stories, many times you give your power away. So that's my precaution, that when it comes to these extraordinary things, you gotta check where your energy is flowing, what's happening to your psychology. is it helping you to gain more self-power, self-control, self-healing, self-capacity? Or you start to fantasize about all sorts of possibilities and abilities, and you feel how sometimes even more as a victim rather than becoming stronger yourself. So this is my precaution when it comes to these extraordinary things. And that's why Buddha said, that, self-realization is possible for everyone. Extraordinary things is not possible for everyone. So, you got to check what are you interested in. And I know it's inspiring and it's interesting, but at the end of the day, you got to see how it helps you. It's a good technique to check anything, how it helps you. If you see a benefit, a clear benefit that, oh, it's helping me to be inspired, that's okay. But if you start fantasizing and imagining and idealizing, you are losing your power. Simple as that. So it's good to check how it is helping you. And I know many people who fall for these extraordinary things and stories, and those people don't get far themselves into that which they can do. Yeah, so they get caught up in fantasies. And so I always prefer, the present moment, the present power, the present ability, and to help everyone to also step into your present power, ability, and that which you can do, and that which is possible for you. So that is very helpful. That is very supportive.
Mindo, can I just come in there on that? For me, that love's a good miracle. Those siddhis, as they're called in India, the gifts that these that people have, these extraordinary gifts. I really did enjoy the way Ramdas, who actually witnessed them with his own eyes, and he I just loved that he would say the same as what you're saying, that it's just part of the, don't get too caught up in it, that some of these gurus have very strong energies and extraordinary abilities. And that I loved, because he'd such humor, Ramdas. He would say, it's a siddhi, it's a gift it's not to be discounted. It's like, it's just something that they can do, but their enlightenment is different, is what you're saying. They're the Ramdas' explanation really helped me, but it helped me also live in the hope of these, that miracles are just beneficial. They're like part of the circus, part of the miracle show of this existence. And
so you do have a larger discernment, but many people don't. Yeah. Many people don't. For many people, it becomes blind faith, blind devotion, and it becomes, blind giving power away. And that's what many people who are not discerning, who are not self-responsible, fall into. So that's why, people are ready for certain things when they're ready for it. And one has to constantly evaluate if that is helping me right now. If that is helping me right now. Because it's the same story with Jesus, he did this, he did that, and for most people, it's just a blind faith. And they don't hear Jesus' message that, love is unconditional and you should, develop yourself rather than listen to the church, stuff, which is not what Jesus was talking at all about. So for many people, who don't have this discernment, they get super amazed and they just give their power away and they just become blinded by even good stuff. I do know, the story of Ramdas and Maharaji. We've been, there ourselves in his ashram and so on. So many things are possible. When I tune into beings in 5D, 6D, 10D, in those higher dimensions, even myself in 4D and 5D and 6D, I can create, temples and palaces with a wave of my hand. I can do that too there, having many, many abilities, but I'm just not talking about them because what's the point for you? How is it going to help you about that? So I don't talk about many things that I have witnessed and experienced because it's just not helpful for people here now. And what happens in higher dimensions, it's way, way beyond, for many people to even think about and understand. And the universe is absolutely amazing, and anything you can think of is possible in the universe, and you can do it. Even you can learn how to do it, but the question is, how much time is going to take it? Can you do it in this lifetime, maybe next lifetime? Can you do it in 3D or maybe not, maybe in 5D and above? It is truly fascinating what is possible, but I will still come back to the same thing of what is helping you, what is giving you power here now, and what is a nice story, a fascinating thing, and perhaps even a not helpful thing. That's the bottom line of it all, basically. So at the same time, I just really want to say that I spent so many years perceiving so many extraordinary things in the universe that if I would keep talking about those things, people would I know that I would not help people in the way that I'm helping now, because it would simply shift into all impossible things for people to think about that are not helping them to actually awaken and actually, raise their consciousness in the way that is happening right now. So I have evaluated and thought about all these things, and I'm focusing on that which is most helpful to people. And for people actually to awaken. There could be many things that I could do for my own ego purposes, to talk about all interesting, extraordinary stuff. But I would be fooling myself, and I would be fooling you, So and I know that at the end it would bite me back, because that's not my path, and my path is to help people realistically and to help them to become more mature, and especially I want to help people so that they can help others. That's kind of my number one thing, not only to help you, but that you would help others. This is the utmost important.